to help your students in math or reading or whatever it is we're working on for the month. I think next we're going to work on homework. So what we're going to do today is just kind of, everybody has a packet called Common Core Math. And then, so we're going to kind of talk about what's in here, which are the standards that our students are working on. And then there's here are grade level standards for your Common Core Math. And what these are included are the anchor standards, and anchor standards are standards that they are responsible for mastering at each grade level. So they're common to each grade level, so they build upon one another. So if they don't master that in kindergarten, then they're going to struggle in first grade, and they're going to struggle in second grade, and they're going to struggle in third grade. So it's just going to be an ongoing cycle. So these are ones that we kind of need to make sure they master each year. And then before you leave, I'll also give you a Common Core Math log, because this year I think, as Ms. Gates explained earlier in the year, they're going to be required to write on their test. So, and they're going to have to be able to explain their thinking. And this kind of gives you a way when you're doing math homework that you can talk to them about writing and math. And they're going to have to be able to do that at each grade level and start in reading and math. And then I also have a little packet prepared for you with games that you can play, and we'll kind of go over the games. And these start out with just using money that you have at home and working with adding, comparing numbers, greater than and less than. And then there's also some games that you can play with playing cards, which a lot of us have at home, or flashcards. So it's just easy things that you probably have at home that you can play math games with your children. So, but here in our packet, you're going to have, I don't know if this works. It may not work. I'm going to have to do it from here. Yeah. But in the packet, we're just going to have some ways to incorporate ideas into like your everyday routine at home. And one way you do that is just ask questions from this parent guide that I've given you every time you help your child with their math homework. And I know just from, I wasn't taught math the way we teach math today. So I know math is just, it's mind-boggling. And it becomes more mind-boggling as they get in high school. I can't help my own child with math. So, unless he can do it himself, he has to have a tutor. But I can't do it. I can't do high school math anymore. But make a point, just to show your child how to use math in your everyday life, which is one way that you can, I've tried to pull these games out for you for the Common Core connection. How do you solve problems? Because that is the biggest thing that we're seeing right now on our test, is they're having problem solving. It's word problems. And then they're having to explain how they got that answer. And help them devise an alternative problem-solving methods, because we all know there's more than one way to skin a cat. So most of the time there's more than one way to solve a problem. So if you also ask your child to informally solve math problems while you're driving in the car. Hey, what's 5 plus 5? What's 6 plus 6? Or, what's 6 times 2? Just ask them math questions as you're driving down the road. Or, if you're going through McDonald's and you're looking at the restaurant in 3rd grade, I would do interventions for 3rd grade. And right now we're talking about rounding. And so I asked them, why would it be important the other day? Why is it important for you to know how to round? What if you're going to the grocery store? Why would that be important? And a lot of them were like, well, what if you just had cash? Right. What if I only had cash in my wallet? I don't have my checkbook. I don't have my credit card. I don't have my debit card. I have nothing. How am I going to know if I have enough money to pay for what's in my card? And they were like, oh. I said, round up to the next dollar. So we talk about that. That's really important. That's something you can do when you go to the grocery store with your child, or when you go to the restaurant. Have them look at the menu and predict how much is their meal going to cost. How much is this basket of groceries going to cost? If you have game night, play math games. Monopoly is an awesome math game because they have to know how to do money. And that is one of the biggest skills that we work on that kids really don't have a concept of. Making change. Have a project night, help do math problems where it just involves real life. I know one of the problems that we work on in 3rd grade is area. And that's another big thing that has gotten to be really complicated for them, is solving area problems. Knowing how much carpet, if we're going to recarpet the house, how much carpet would we need? And teach them how to do that through measurement and multiplication. And then just make math rules. Calculators, have some math tools at home. Calculators, rulers, and things like that, just for your child to be able to reinforce those math skills that we're talking about at school. These are what I was talking about, the anchor standards. At every grade level, this is what students are responsible for doing, beginning in kindergarten. They have to make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. That's problem solving. They have to know how to reason abstractly and quantitatively, be able to construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. That's where they're having to learn to write and explain what they're thinking. They have to be able to model, draw a picture of what they're thinking. Use mathematical tools. They're not allowed to use calculators on tests, rulers. A lot of times they'll ask them about using a ruler, a measurement tool, but they don't use calculators. Attend to precision, make use of structure, and look for and express regularity and repeated reasoning. And so that's what they're asked to do at each grade level. And then for each specific grade levels, I've prepared this, and you can take that for your specific grade level that your child is in. And then this kind of explains these further, what they're asked to do at that grade level. And that's all of those things that these are some in your packet also in the parent guide. These are things that you can do, projects that you can do with your child. And I copied them from the back, so you can cut them apart. What I like to tell parents to do is to cut those apart and put them in a baggie. So as you're driving down the road, child can pull it out and read the card. So not only does that reinforce math, but it reinforces reading. Read the card and they can answer the problem. So those are some questions that you can ask while you solve math problems if you're doing them at home. And then it also has some more questions. And then it has some activities for each one of the Anger standards. Perseverance. So for example, solving math problems can be hard work. Children need to build stamina and learn to persevere so that they can find tricky solutions. So one of the activities is make a perseverance list for your child and keep it handy. For family math night, you could, one game is guess your rules, and that also talks about its patterns, being able to recognize patterns in math. For example, 2, 46, and 100. What's the rule? What do all those numbers have in common? They're even. Okay? 5 plus 6, 12 minus 1, 20 minus 4 minus 5. What's the rule? What do all those have in common? They all equal 11. 5, what number minus 20? 5, what number equals 20? Something, 8, 3. Okay, the rule 12, multiplying by 4. 3 times 4 is 12. 5 times 4 is 20. Okay, so all of those you would multiply by 4 to get that answer. 2 times 4 is 8. So those are just kind of fun things that they can do. And it also not only works with them on math, but it also helps them to think and to kind of think out loud. So those are just some activities that you can do, speedy numbers, math jobs. And then another thing that we find here at school that so many of our students are lacking in is just math vocabulary. And really it's vocabulary across the board. And so all the teachers have in their rooms, or most of them have keywords in math that we teach the students. Like, what does it mean if you ask sum? A lot of them still don't remember sum means to add. What's the difference? Subtract. Just kind of throw those words out there when you're talking to them instead of just saying, what is 5 take away 2? We all know that means to subtract. Well, what is the difference of 5 and 2? And then it helps them to build that math vocabulary. Instead of saying times, use multiply. So, and teach them different ways, because sometimes they have to understand that there's a circle, a dot means to multiply. 5 and then a dot and a 3 means to multiply, not just 5x3, the times symbol. So they start to learn different ways of doing things. So those are just some fun things that you can do with them at home, and that's included in that packet of information. And then this is the math log, and we'll kind of go through that, because this is going to be one of the most important things, the more important things this year with the writing. Because this is something the students have never had to do before, is to write in math. Or really to write in any of their standardized tests. They've never had to do that before. And also, I think you also know that this year, 30% of our students will take their test online. So not only will they have to write, some of them will have to be able to type on the computer. either the answer. Not in grades 3, 4, and 5. Not in K1 or 2. But 30% of the students will take their test online, and by, I think, the year, 2 more years, we have to go to 100% all the time. So everything's getting more and more rigorous, not just for them, but for us too. Because when you're taking that test online, it's going to be, did the technology work today? So in this little packet, and I couldn't pull this one up for y'all to see, and I kind of made it smaller, but if you need it bigger, you can let me know, and I can make it bigger for you. But these are just some ideas of while you're solving math problems, show your work and explain what you're thinking. So if you're making up some math problems for your child to do at home, have them not only work the problem out, but explain to you how they got to their answer. So if you were asking them to figure out how much your dinner is going to cost tonight, and give them some numbers, why did you choose that? Why did you round that to $16? Or why did you do that? Did you round it to the nearest 100? Did you round it to the nearest 10? Did you round it to the nearest dollar? And have them explain that to you. And then also, while you're solving, rather than explaining what you're thinking, focus on understanding the problem. And try to put everything in real life to them. The fair's coming this week. That's a great way to pull in some math with the fair. How many square feet do you think the fairgrounds are? If we go to the fair tonight, if we buy this many tickets, and the tickets cost this much, how much are we going to spend? So that's a great way, and that's something that they're going to be really excited about. If you're like, most of them love the fair. My children are older, I try not to go to the fair. Try to stay away from the fair. But, and then have them really kind of focus on explaining that, and what are the words, the key words that you pulled out of there? What's the vocabulary? How spend, how much? So they know how much did you spend means I added. How much change am I going to get back means that you're going to subtract. So have them really write down what they think that vocabulary means. And then more working with manipulatives and pictures. They can have them explain what they're thinking in pictures. You ask them, how many square feet do you think the fairground is? Have them draw a picture of the fairground. Even if they don't get it right, they can draw a picture of the fairground. They can put some rides on there, and they can measure out what they drew, and then you can see if they understand that concept of area. So it's just more of the same problems over, the same pages over again, until you get to the back where we talk about the perseverance list. So they could talk about each time you work extra hard to solve a math problem, write it down. What was the date and what was the problem? Why did you persevere when you solved that? And then for your math job, that skill would be helpful in the following job. What jobs do you need math to do? A bank teller. Really you need math to do anything. Working at a restaurant. So have them write down jobs that they would do in real life that would require them to know math. I think the last one talks about vocabulary. Math words to remember. So as you're solving problems, have them write down, or you write down the word and have them tell you, what do you think that word meant? What would that be? And then a synonym. Can you think of a word that means about the same thing? So when they say multiply, times. If they say add, sum. So have them think of synonyms for the word. And then draw pictures of what the word means. Because a lot of kids learn not only through memorization, but a lot of them learn by drawing pictures visually. And a lot of them are artistic. They learn by just that hand movement. So you have to kind of tap into their learning style when you're teaching them. So that's just some things to do at home. And then we'll go through a couple of games that you can play. Heads or tails, and I'm going to draw those up there that you'll have them. I think that was okay.
It wasn't.
Same like those. They're sticking. So these are just some fun games that you can play at home. If you have a bunch of spare change, I know a lot of people have change jars at home, but one of the first one is called heads and tails. And so just take a piece of paper, divide it in two, heads on one side, tails on the other, put a group of coins on one side and a group of coins on the other, and there's a lot of things you could do with that. You could have them count, how much money do I have? Or what do I have on this side, what do I have on that side? They can add, so they can practice regrouping. They can multiply, head times tails. They can divide, practice division. You can also practice comparing numbers. Say on the head side, I have 52 cents, and on the tail side, I have 28 cents. Have them tell you, is 52 cents greater than or less than 28 cents? So they can do all kinds of different math with money and heads or tails. Also in counting the money and recognizing the coins, because I know the little ones especially have a hard time telling the difference between the nickel and the dime. Even though they're totally different sizes, they get them confused. They think the dime is worth less because it's smaller, and the nickel's worth more because it's bigger. And then they get confused because the nickel and the quarter are almost close in size. So they get confused on that. So even just practicing what those coins are and knowing how to recognize them. How many dimes are in a quarter? How many nickels are in a quarter? And it was always fun when I taught second grade to tell the kids that there's really 13 different ways to make 25 cents. And they can actually sit down with a quarter and draw out with money how many different ways to make 25 cents and learn 25 pennies first, then trade in all, 5 pennies for a nickel. So you get five nickels, trade in your nickels, and just have them draw it out. I didn't know there were 13 ways to make 25 cents either, so I did it in the math problem.
I'm like, wait, hold on.
I didn't know either talking about the math problem, and I've probably been teaching about 6 years before I knew that, so. And there's also flashcards or playing cards, dominoes and dice, other things that we have at home. If you have dice at home, you can roll the dice and have them add the dots. Roll the dice and have them multiply the dots. Roll the dice and tell you was one number greater than, less than, or equal to the other. So there's lots of different things you can do with dice. And playing cards that you have at home, they can go through them, pick 2 cards and add those numbers, pick 2 cards, multiply those numbers. It's probably hard to divide them unless you have, the tens or whatever. So those are some things that they can do at home. They can do memory with those if they're just learning to recognize their numbers. You can play memory with math, with playing cards. And always online, if you Google, there are tons of resources. So you could say like flashcards, free math games. If you Google it, it'll come up and you can print out tons of stuff. I Google a lot of stuff to do here at school. And it comes up and it's free. So those are just ideas that you can do at home.
Actually, I have a really good one on my phone.
There's another really good app. Speaking about your phone, if you have a smartphone, a tablet, there's a lot of good apps called Quick Reference, and it comes up with math ideas. There's a Common Core math app that's free, and there are other math games that are free if you have a smartphone or a tablet that they can do.
This one's called SightWords, but it also has math on there as well.
Okay.
And it's like a $1.99 app. Because my daughter just loves playing on my phone. And so I'm like, here, you can play this now. And she goes through it, and you can set it for different grades. Like, I think it goes all the way up to, let me see what grade it goes up to. I think it goes up to, it goes up to 3rd grade. So you have pre-K, kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, or 7th.
And there's one that I have on my iPad here at school, and it's a math, and it gives you 10 free math problems a day. So they're different every day. So when I'm working sometimes with the kids, I'll let them play with that, so they at least get 10 free different math problems every day.
What's the app?
I'm not sure I can get that yet.
Oh, okay.
There has a fish on it, I know that. It's called Common Core Math Kids, I think. Common Core Math Kids. If you just Google Common Core Math, or in your search box in your app store and say Common Core Math, it'll come up with a bunch of different math games. So, and I think they're all mostly compatible if it's an Android or Apple, or even if it's a Kindle Fire. I think they're all the same apps, work interchangeably. You just have to download them from different stores, probably different app stores.
Yeah, here it's showing, it says Common Core Math for today, 4th grade, 5th grade, 7th grade,
Yeah.
6th grade. There's nothing on 1st grade, but maybe the 1st grade is just the Common Core Math.
Right. So if you just, go to your app store and do that, you can find lots of them. And most of them are free. And if they're not free, if they're $1, they will offer you a free version that will give you so many free ones per day, which is 10 or 15 a day. And then the next day will give you 10 or 15 more. So, but that's what we have today. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but definitely want to give you ways to go back and work with your children at home on that. And just kind of give you let you know the expectations of what they're expected each grade level now, because it's getting more and more rigorous as we go. And also to let you know if you have questions or if you have concerns or if you ways you can find help for your students, you can always call me or email me, and I'm always available to give you resources and help in any way I can.
Can I just ask you?
Uh-huh.
As first graders, how do you have band night in your law? Okay, how do you,
They do it just with their phonetic spelling.
okay.
And that's what they'll do at the end of the year on their test. They take 2 tests a year. They take it's called an SGA, and they take it at the beginning of school, and then they take it again at the end of school. And at the end of school, they have a performance test that they take, and they write it themselves.
So you would just start out, and as the days go on, you would try to help them correct that?
Usually they're going to ask you, how do I spell that?
Okay.
A lot of times, at school we can't help them spell that, but at home, they don't. You can help them
give me an
spell it.
example of what a first grader would be doing on this sheet of paper.
Okay, if you had a first grader, you could say, I planted a garden. Okay, I planted five rows of tulips, 3 rows of daffodils. How many rows of flowers did I plant in all? And they would do 5 plus 3 is 8.
And then what do they write here? That whole scenario?
They could draw a picture of it.
When you want them to.
They would
do
write
that.
5 plus 3 is 8, and then they could draw a picture of 5 rows and 3 rows, and then they could say, I added 5 rows of tulips plus 3 rows of, daffodils or whatever, and that gave me 8 rows in all.
Okay.
So like just more of a complete sentence.
Okay. Can we borrow those dollar amount things that they have for kids as examples?
What are those now?
You know how you can go to Target or you can go to Books A Million and they have those books.
Right.
Can we use those examples?
Yes.
Do you let them look at it or you read it?
You can let them look at it, and you can read it to them. Their teachers in 1st and 2nd grade read the test to them.
Okay.
So they get the test read to them in 1st and 2nd grade. It's in 3rd grade when they do that more of independence, where they start reading it on their own.
Okay.
But they don't read the reading portion to them in 1st and 2nd grade. They have to read their reading passages on their own, and then the teachers read the questions and the answer choices. And in math, they read everything to them. So they get it read to them. So it's perfectly acceptable for you to read it for them at home.
Okay.
But in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, they don't get it read to them. Sorry, we kind of throw them away then. Expect them to know how to do it on their own, but which is unfortunate because a lot of them still are struggling in math and struggling in reading in 3rd grade, especially at the beginning of 3rd grade. So that is unfortunate that we kind of keep reading it to them throughout 1st and 2nd, or definitely throughout 2nd, and then in 3rd grade we expect them to be able to.
When do they separate that touchdown?
You know what? 3rd graders are still doing. I see them all the time when I'm in there. I see them a lot of them when they're doing their time test. They're still doing it. They probably start to separate that themselves once they become more comfortable and have that memorization part down. But I see a lot of them still doing it, and that's a great way for them to learn how to add and subtract. And I know they do a really good job of that in 1st grade, teaching that. Anything else? I think we have Jen Williams with us today, and she's got a little something for some of our parents that she wanted to talk about.
I think that'd be fine. Do you want
Okay.
us to just go ahead and step out? I had sent home a flyer to a few of our families that are going to participate in a new math program. So if you received that flyer, do we have anybody here today that received it? We're going to step across the
Okay.
hall to the other resource, and we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you so much. This is
You're
great
welcome.
information.
All right.
If that's okay with you, I'm going to take it and borrow it.
Okay, you're fine to do that. And I think Jen will be with us throughout our parent university.
Yes, so hopefully I'll see everybody again next month.